Welcome along everyone to the Really Connect webinar series where we're really going to be focusing on sharing you how you can really upskill your LinkedIn skill sets, and we'll be covering over this series a few webinars. We'll be looking at everything from why should you be on LinkedIn, what's the main value that you get from it, what's the main outcomes if you were to use LinkedIn effectively, but also we'll be looking at some of the reasons why people don't get results on LinkedIn. And it's really important to understand that. And I'm very blessed to be here to be with you all, and I'm really looking forward to a very productive webinar series. I've got my co-captain, Naomi Johnson. How are you today, Naomi?
I'm good, Mike. Great, thanks.
Good to hear, good to hear. Well, I'll introduce everything very quickly. I'm not going to spend too long an introduction. You're here to get maximum value, so let's jump into it, guys, and let's have some fun. And what I just give you pre-frame around is, please do ask questions as we go through it. Just know that we're going to be zipping through some content initially. We're going to try and keep it to around the half-hour mark, and then Naomi will look to be able to stick around to be able to answer a lot of your questions for you as well. So just know that that we may be able to answer some of your questions as we go through it, but if not, we'll be hanging around afterwards. We just want to respect everybody's time, so if you do have to head off around the half-hour mark, we'll be aiming for you to do so. But if you do want to stick around for questions, we'll be able to cover that towards the end. So do keep the questions in there, and we'll go through them at the end to answer them for you. So moving straight into it, before we jump on to tell you all the great things that we're going to do, let's look at the agenda. We're looking at who we are, so you get a bit of background around us. What are the goals and objectives of not just this webinar, but the entire series that we've put together for you? We're looking at why, and over the course of this session, we'll be looking at why should you be using LinkedIn? What's the real value in it for you? We'll be looking at LinkedIn from the perspective of, is it a time suck or is it a productivity tool? And we'll be looking at some of the mistakes that people make in using it particularly as a time suck. And then we'll be finishing and wrapping up this session with getting social, social selling, social recruiting, and social fundraising, some key words that are popping out. And we'll be sharing with you what that really means to you, so you can get under the skin of what that means, and most importantly, how you can use it to make yourself more productive and effective. So a bit of background on us. As you can see here, we work with some very household name blue chip organizations, over 450 of Europe's top corporate organizations. We have also worked with thousands of small business owners and entrepreneurs to use LinkedIn in a commercial sense. And our strategies have put £4.3 million worth of new business opportunities into our clients' pipelines over the last year. So what we teach works, and that's why I want to share with you what you need to do from beginning to end strategy. Some of the people on my team, you'll see me, that's my cheesy mug there. I've come from a small business background. I've worked with thousands of small business owners, played a lot in the corporate space the last few years. We worked with some household names in that space, if you saw this slide and the slide before. And really what I'm passionate about is helping business owners and sales professionals and recruitment professionals to use LinkedIn in a commercial way to produce real results, to get a strategy, to develop a strategy that produces tangible returns. My business partner in crime, Bert the Donk, he's the best-selling author of over 5 books. He's just recently written the LinkedIn for Dummies book. By incident, the book you see at the top there, the How to Really Use LinkedIn book, is actually given to every LinkedIn employee upon their induction at LinkedIn's headquarters in EMEA. And so it's part of the onboarding process. And LinkedIn even brings us in. Bert typically trains a lot of the LinkedIn staff themselves, which is quite ironic when you think about it. But no, he's the author of 6 different books. He's our senior trainer, of which we have 10 trainers on board, and Bert is the one that oversees their training and development. And so that's a bit about Bert. And it's my pleasure to introduce to you today Naomi, who'll be leading this session. Naomi Johnson is our leading training consultant at Really Connect. She's been working with us over the last 9 months, and she's worked with hundreds of businesses to help them assess their profiles, what works, what doesn't. Looks at their LinkedIn strategy and says, okay, what are you doing now? What are you aiming to achieve? And how is your LinkedIn strategy either aiding the process or sabotaging the process? So she's going to be leading the session. She's a bit of the architect behind this webinar series, because she's been speaking to practical people on the ground, from large corporate organization individuals right through to small business owners. So she'll be sharing with you some of the insights of the key questions that come out during those conversations, and she'll be sharing with you some of the answers and solutions for them. She comes from a very strong small business background herself of over 8 years, marketing specialism. She's even written a book which is called Grassroots to Green Shoots. And yeah, so it's an absolute pleasure to have Naomi on our team, and she's going to be running through, as I said, some very, very valuable information that's going to be very practical for you. So excellent. So let's get into this, guys. We're going to move on to the goals and objectives. And before I hand it over to Naomi, the thing I'd just like to say is this. This series has been put together for you to help you understand how to use LinkedIn more effectively, what are some of the pitfalls that people make when they use LinkedIn, and how can you avoid them to make sure that you use LinkedIn and turn it into something that produces results. All right? That's essentially what our goals and objectives and intentions are behind this series. And we look at everything when it comes to LinkedIn. I'll touch on at the very end, you know, a bit about how you might want to work with us. But I mean, essentially, you know, we look at everyone when they come into LinkedIn. Everyone's at a different skill set and level of confidence and competency. So we have a range of courses and trainings, and we help to assess people whether you're right at the beginning, you're setting up a LinkedIn profile, or you're right at the other end of the spectrum where you're an absolute expert all-star LinkedIn user. And so we've got a range of ways we can support you with that, but most importantly, we can help you to identify what are the relevant questions, what level are you at, and what is the next level of thing that you need to focus on to improve your LinkedIn skill to move to the next level. And this webinar series will help you understand where you're at and how to take the next steps. So, with all that being said, I'm going to hand you over to my partner in crime here with the process. Over to you, Naomi.
Great, thanks, Mike. Just a quick one, Mike. The slides aren't moving on the presentation. I assume that you're pressing them? And we maybe have.
Yes, they're moving my side.
Yeah, Richard says, could you just stop sharing the screen and try again, and maybe that will work. So if you are looking.
Oh, you're kidding me.
No, if you are looking at this, we actually are moving the slides, but hopefully we'll get that fixed in a minute. But we'll just get started anyway, and you can enjoy my pretty pictures later. There are some really cool slides in there. Okay, so the first question we want to approach today is why use LinkedIn? But the real question we want to be asking is, what is it for, and why do we really want to be using it in our business? Is it going to help us or hinder us? And to answer this question, I want us to really drill down into the core objective, the core outcome that we're looking to achieve in our day-to-day business, because it's here that we're going to start to realize just how LinkedIn can speed up our results and make us more productive. One of the biggest issues people have with social media, and LinkedIn namely, is the amount of time it takes and confusion around as to how they should be using it. In the next couple of minutes, I just want to address these issues with you and put LinkedIn into context and just show you where it fits in the business model. Then hopefully you'll be able to make a choice for yourself as to whether you're going to be using it or whether not to, because when it's on your to-do list and you don't get to it, we all know what that feels like. So really, I just want us to get down to basics. In your business, how should you be allocating time? When choosing to spend anything, we really have to go back to the outcome we want to achieve and make sure that the activity we're spending our time on is getting us closer to that outcome rather than pulling us away. So if you're an entrepreneur, then likely your goal is to win new business, new contracts, new sales. If you're in recruitment, that would be to find the new employees that you've been commissioned to find. And if you're in a charity, to actually raise the money that you've been asked to raise. And I think we can all agree that no matter what our role is within the company, our outcome is to get paid. When that's whether you're the cleaner or whether you're whatever level of staff, you are there to actually help the company to make money and to survive. So the key thing is to make sure the company can do what it needs to do, and that is bring in new customers, new recruits, or raise money. So once we've really drilled down to that, it's really easy to start looking at how we should be spending our time, and it really becomes a bit of a numbers game. For example, if you need to make one new hire, then you might need to look at 30 resumes to find 10 people you can interview 3 people for a second interview, and then hire 1 person. And if you're in sales, that's 20 perhaps prospects that you can get down to 10 appointments, 5 proposals. You might go out and you win 1 contract. When you know these numbers, it gets really, really easy, because then you know exactly how to spend your time. You spend your time going out there and ensuring that you're getting 20 appointments, because you know that if you get 20 prospects, because you know when you've got 20 prospects, take them through the process, you're definitely going to get 1 new client. So when we're looking at LinkedIn and where to use it and how we're spending our time, we have to ask ourselves, are we doing the thing that's going to make us achieve those 20 new prospects or find those 30 new resumes? the answer is yes, we're on track to achieving our results. If the answer is no, then we shouldn't perhaps be doing that activity. We need to weigh up where it fits within everything else we need to be doing. And this is true even if your role is in communications and PR, where you're not necessarily going out there to book in new appointments for people, but you're just spreading communication and the word about what you do. But when you drill really down to it, you look at the fundamental reason why you're employed to do communications and PR, it's because the company wants to increase the number of leads coming to its business and the number of presentations they can do. So even though your role is to spread the word, increase awareness, fundamentally the outcome that's supposed to come from that is that you get more appointments. So sometimes it's just a case of just really focusing down on that and saying, are we actually getting people booking in the diary where we can go out and do a business presentation to them? And all of our communications should be created around creating awareness that leads people to move successfully into our sales pipeline, to our sales team, or through our recruitment pipeline to get to having a conversation with one of our recruiters. And one of the biggest reasons people struggle with LinkedIn is because they're not sure whether what they're doing is a distraction towards achieving their outcome, or whether it's going to help them, or they simply don't know how it's going to help them achieve it. So they revert back to old methods that they know, like, and trust, not realizing that actually LinkedIn is the very thing that could help them to do their job that they're commissioned to do quicker and better than if they didn't. They haven't made the connection between how LinkedIn can help you achieve quickly the results that you've been commissioned to achieve. And these days you probably hear people continually saying, yes, I'm on LinkedIn, but when you actually ask them further, they'll tell you that they aren't getting many results from it, and actually they have no idea how to be using it. And certainly it's this way when we talk to people, and when it comes to achieving your numbers, they have no idea how to turn the connections that they see on LinkedIn, people they're connected to, they have no idea how to turn those people actually into prospects. So it does become more of a distraction than a help. And I don't know if you've ever used the advanced search, but most people have no idea what to do with the results that come up. So it just feels like a bit of a waste of time. It's like, yeah, this tool's sitting there, but really, what do I do with it? How do I turn this into something where I'm actually having appointments with people? And we're going to go into that in a little bit later in this webinar. So basically, not knowing how to do it turns LinkedIn into a bit of an albatross around people's necks. It's a bit of a social pressure to be part of it, but that lack of understanding how to do it. It's something they know they should be doing, but they simply have no idea. And so it just sort of every day is on the to-do list, but never quite gets done. And when you do put time aside, perhaps you don't get the results from it that you actually want. So the reason why we should dedicate our time to it, which is the next slide, it's, when we dedicate our time to it, we're actually going to save time, we're going to get better quality results, we're going to improve efficiency, and we're going to develop trusting relationships with people better than we had before. And we're also going to be able to save money, where once we were advertising and really having to do a lot to get our message out there, we're now going to be able to find our target market quicker, easily, and it's not going to cost us anything. And this is exactly where we can help you at Really Connect. We can help you by showing you how to turn your connections into valuable business leads, and better yet, how to develop a trusting relationship with those connections in a way that ensures that when you're speaking to them, the relationship is now far more advanced than it would have been otherwise. So this is the reason why we're advocates for LinkedIn. We're advocates for it because we know it saves time, it brings in quality leads, and it can help you enhance and strengthen the relationship with your prospects. We are ourselves all from business backgrounds and sales backgrounds, so we actually understand the fundamental drivers in a business. It's about getting appointments and how much time that can take, and the quickest way to get that time. So get those appointments. So this is why we're really behind LinkedIn, because we know what it can do for you when you really learn how to use it. Which brings us on to the next point on our agenda, which is LinkedIn a time suck or a productivity tool? Now, I know many of you will probably be thinking, probably a time suck, I don't know how to use it. The fact is that if you use LinkedIn incorrectly, it will be a time suck for you. If it's done correctly, it'll be the best productivity tool you have ever experienced. And I guess it's kind of similar to driving a car, which I assume most of you can. We've each learned how to drive a car at some point in our lives. If you haven't, just stay with us. I'm sure you can make the connection. But let's look at the connection as to why it was that we chose to drive a car. It's pretty obvious, really. We wanted to go from A to B and quicker than if we would have done if we were walking. And we wanted to go further than we could potentially have ever walked. Driving a car allows us to get from the A to B quicker and faster, and is probably the one skill that you've learned in your life that has the biggest productivity return ever. Just think about it. When you used to have to walk to the shops, it would take you 10 minutes. Now you can drive there in 1 minute, and you can be back within 5 minutes. It has saved you a huge amount of time in your life. And if you haven't learned to drive, or you don't drive all the time because you live in a city, just think how grateful we must be for those who did spend their time creating trains and driving trains and buses that actually seriously increase our productivity. Now, I'm not saying that LinkedIn is a car, but the analogy works. When you learn to use it correctly, LinkedIn has the power to get you to your destination quickly and effectively at a very low cost. As you see on the slides now, I've got a list here of all the things that LinkedIn has the power to do for you. It has the power to generate you a list of highly targeted leads, so you can run a really good search, really drilling down to just the types of people that you want to be talking to. And not only that, but it will actually give you full up-to-date information on those leads. You can actually get their email addresses and know exactly what job they're in, where they're up to, allowing you to do really good background research and find out the information you need to help you with your research, whether that's finding someone for a job, or whether that's actually finding somebody who might be a potential client who would want to take advantage of your product, service, or opportunity. You can actually research them in depth before actually making contact with them. You can share your message with your target audience easily just by sharing updates. You can keep your prospects and clients fully up to date with your activities and vice versa. You also have the ability to leverage the trust in your network, which is a great concept and something in this webinar series you're going to hear a lot about. You spent your whole career building up your reputation and your trust, and with LinkedIn you can leverage all of that for your success today. LinkedIn also allows you to join valuable discussions, allowing you to hear the pains and the issues and the words used by your target audience, so you can reframe the sales copy, etc. And also, it allows you to establish yourself as a thought leader. It allows you to get in the driver's seat of your business and leverage word of mouth recommendations instead of waiting for them to perhaps happen. Because let's face it, word of mouth recommendations, they happen pretty randomly. But with LinkedIn, you can actually get in the driver's seat and make them happen. And yep, you have the ability to leverage the trust you spent your whole career developing. So let me ask you this. Would being able to create a list of highly targeted leads instantly at no cost be of value? If you could then have that list update itself as people qualified under your search criteria, meaning that when they were actually, they update their profile and put a new job in, if they then actually would qualify under your criteria, they would come into those search results and you get notification to say a new person had qualified and therefore a new lead had arrived for you. Would that be useful? If you can make an initial assessment on whether this is the right person for your opportunity without having to pick up the phone, and actually learn quite a lot about them without speaking to them as well. If you could ask the person for introductions rather than having to go in cold and make a cold call to somebody, which is always highly awkward, but you could actually get someone to introduce you and see if the opportunity might lay nicely with them, and have your prospect learn about your company without you having to be present, that they could actually be digesting information about you and finding out for themselves whether they're a good fit for you or not. This sounds pretty good, right? So the question is, why do people resist this so much if this is what has been made available to them? And it's usually two reasons. Firstly, because they don't know what it can do for them, and secondly, they don't know how to drive the car. They don't know how to drive LinkedIn and actually make it work for them. But for those who are resisting it, which maybe not all of you, you are here wanting to learn, and you're obviously searching for the answers, but resisting it can be quite normal. People resisted learning to drive cars in the early days because it was the unknown. They felt unsafe, and they couldn't yet perceive how the benefits outweighed the risks. And it's the same with LinkedIn. There's a lot of nervousness around getting it wrong and making a fool of yourself, about burning relationships, or even extreme publicly humiliating yourself, and ending up in the paper for some comment you made. But really, these stories are so very rarely. They're very, very rare, especially when you consider the amount of people using it, and the damage done is rarely fatal. But also, like driving a car, there's going to be a lot more. There would be a lot more accidents and brand damage if you've not learned to drive properly. And this is the reason why, with cars, you have a driver's license, you have eyesight checks and health checks before you're allowed to get behind the wheel. And I would suggest that even if you want to really use LinkedIn and regenerate the benefits that we've discussed, you might feel a lot safer if you've learned some of the rules. Now, that's not to say you can't just get started on your own. This is where the car analogy doesn't quite line up. But as anyone will tell you, a few lessons and pointers will go a long way to increasing your confidence and mostly your results. So we started with the question, is LinkedIn a time suck or a productivity? Is it an energy vampire or a time vampire? The answer to this question is that it is both. If you don't know how to use it, you will create confusion and stress, which in itself is an energy vampire. If you invest time in it, but you won't get any results for the time you've put in, you'll see no increase in appointments, whether that's sales appointments or interviews. You'll see, so that will probably negatively impact your results, because now you're not doing what actually does get you results, so you'll be wasting your time. But then at the same time, if you completely ignore LinkedIn and don't bring your profile up to date, and at least put some information on there and hopefully consistent with all of your team members, this is going to hurt your brand image, which in time will create more time for you to get a job done because you're not putting the right image out there. So yeah, it is a time suck if you're doing it wrong. However, if you're doing it right, some of the things we've already covered, you're gonna benefit from all of those reasons we said, all the things that it can do. So with that clear end goal in mind, there is the pressure to be using it and the confusion around it, which is absolutely a time vampire. And it's just like learning to drive a car. In the beginning, you were nervous and incompetent. You didn't know what all the buttons and levers did, and you probably wouldn't want to have slammed your foot on the accelerator just to see what happens, because probably the worst would happen. And it's the same with using LinkedIn and the thought of sending an email to somebody you don't know. You really could crash and burn and actually ruin that relationship for just getting it wrong. So there is a level of social etiquette here and things that you would want to learn of how you build a relationship up from not knowing someone to getting to know them, and to really bring some of these things into play. But you once with the car, like you did start learning it. You went from being incompetent to competent with practice every single day. And then you started to get on the roads and you started to maneuver the streets and interact with your fellow neighbours courteously, and you became a confident driver. It just took a bit of exercise every day of trying new things, getting confident with this and bit and getting confident with that bit. And it's exactly the same with LinkedIn. When you put the time in daily and exercise with it, you'll start to get competent at all the different things. And before you know it, you'll actually be able to get from where you want to be to where you need to be, from where you are to where you need to be, a lot faster than if you chose to walk. And it's just a little bit of practice every day, and that's why it's important to understand exactly where LinkedIn fits within your business body, your business model. Because when you know what you're going to do with it and why, you'll be able to start investing your time and energy into it and start developing the habit that's going to pay you dividends. And just like you would have looked at the car and thought, I can't learn to drive one of those, I don't want to, I'm not sure about it, or it felt really uncomfortable, like you had 5 lessons and you still felt like, oh, I can't do this, and you wanted to give it up, or you had a really scary experience where you didn't put the brakes on at the stoplight, but you knew that you needed to stay with it and keep going with it because your life would be hindered if you didn't learn to drive. and manage to get in a car, to have the freedom to drive off to this business meeting or that business meeting. I mean, imagine what your life would be if you didn't learn to drive. And just to have a look at how much better life is because you can drive. And it's exactly the same with LinkedIn. When you really know how to use it, when you've got to the other side and you're using it daily to achieve your outcomes, you're going to wonder why you resisted it. And also, you know, anyone can teach themselves to drive, but it just takes longer, and you're more prone to getting it wrong, or like burning the clutch, or whatever it is that you could do in the car when you haven't had lessons. You could take it into the field and start working it out yourself, but you do a lot better when you actually take a lesson, and you really work out everything it can do. And you know, you might drive in first gear and think that's all that's available, when actually there are 5 gears. So it's the same with LinkedIn. It's about getting under the bonnet and working out how to use it. So yeah, that is, whether it is a time cycle productivity tool, it's both. You only see a return on the time you invest in it daily when you actually learn how to use it. So the question is, how do you use it? How do you use it effectively and make sure it gets results? Well, a large part of your success on LinkedIn will come from knowing how to build an authentic and genuine relationship with people. And it's for this reason that the terms social selling and social recruiting have come about. But what is that? What does it mean? Fundamentally, social selling and social recruiting is about embracing the new behavioral shift that has occurred in the way that people buy, whether that's a product or choosing to come and actually work for your company. In the past, a sales rep or a recruiter would have had their work cut out trying to find you, find prospects that they could meet with, and then sit down. They'd have to sit down and share the benefits of the service, the product, the opportunity, or the job that they're talking about. However, today, a company that effectively positions itself with the right content on the right platform would typically find that 60% of the sales process has already been completed before a conversation takes place. Or, as is the case for many businesses, if you're having conversations with prospects, you could be working 10 times harder for the same result than your counterpart, i.e. your competitor may have all of this taken care of and have all the different things in the social selling working for them, and therefore you're getting sales and they're getting sales, but actually you're taking 10 times longer to achieve it than the person who's actually using LinkedIn properly. And if you're not having the conversation with the prospect and your competitor has taken care of these things, you can pretty much be sure that your competitor is the one having the conversation with the prospect, simply for the fact that they can be found and they have the information available. So it's really important to get your information up there and be ready with it. What we've seen happen in the last 20 years since the beginning of the internet is that there's been a complete change in the way people buy. It's now an integrated part of our lives that we will research a product online and ask our friends for input on our decision before we go ahead. And having information available with firm recommendations is an imperative part of the sale. The information you place online directly affects your image, including the quality of your profile. Did you know that actually the profile and how that matches up with your website, all of these things are being taken into consideration? It's a big turn-off for someone if they see that your profile is not filled out. And there's nothing consistent on it, especially in recruitment. This is a major issue. Recruitment companies are finding if they don't have the information filled out, because they are expecting the candidate to have it done. But let's take a step back and think about it. I mean, what is the first thing you do when you hear about a new company or a new position or a new product or solution that could help you solve one of your problems? You Google it, right? You look it up on LinkedIn. You'd look up the person on LinkedIn, you'd probably check out Facebook comments, or you'd ask for someone you know for their opinion. It's almost a habit now, something we do without thinking. And the availability of this information being readily available has fundamentally shifted the way people buy. And a study by IBM confirmed that 60% of the buying decision has been completed before a sales representative gets involved. And that's mostly because all the questions they had needing to be answered at the beginning of their search, they can now find all this information out, and they've already compared all the prices and the features and the benefits, and now they're ready to have a much more advanced conversation than before. So for yourself as the person marketing your business, whether that's in sales or marketing it as to get top talent to come and work for you, what does this mean? Well, basically, it means that your sales rep or recruiter can now achieve the same result in 40% less time than it takes them, used to take them, because 60% of the job has already been taken care of. They've just got to take care of the next 40%. 60% of your sales cycle can actually now be automated, and the information you make available is absolutely critical, and it affects your brand. And this information needs to be available 24/7, because if you haven't got it, be sure your competitor is supplying this information, and they will take that opportunity from you. And this is a really interesting point, actually, because even though this is called social selling, it's actually a really strange name for it, because those words, although they work perfectly in summing up what we're talking about, in reality, the word social and the word selling are completely opposite ends of the spectrum. They're polar opposites. And we've seen this in the evolution of Facebook. People have had very clear opinions on what they want to see on it and what they don't. There's been a bit of a revolt against friends who try to market or sell their products or services using their activity feeds. I'm sure you've seen it before on your profile, where someone's like blatantly just pushing their product, wanting you to buy from it, and most likely you unfriended them or tell them to stop. People are constantly getting long streams of conversation about this when they say, come on now, this is not what we're doing. Because the reason is this is a social environment. Facebook is a social environment where we talk about friends and family, and we don't expect someone to walk in there with their own objective and start spouting off about what they do. And the same is actually true of LinkedIn, despite the fact that it is actually a professional network, and it's known for being a place you can have open, confident conversations about your business. In fact, it actually goes against LinkedIn's own wishes that you would push your message out at such extreme without care for the individual you're talking to and having a personal relationship with the person you're talking back to. And we can see this in the fact they've removed certain functions, namely the ability to send masses of emails to people at one time. Now you can only send messages to 50 people that you're actually connected with, and you can't message people that you don't know. And that is because they want people to build a genuine relationship, and because this is how business gets done. Good business comes from good relationships. And if you push out a general message that's not personalized, you are likely to turn your prospect off. You don't go into a party with your friends and set up a stall and start selling your product right there and then. You don't do it. It's offensive. And it's exactly the same in this space. You need to be able to build this relationship up to such a point where the person is asking to know more and they welcome you to tell them about it. So how do you do that? How do you build a relationship with someone who's just a name on a screen? You've never spoken to them, you don't know them, you think that your product would be good for them, but you're not sure, and you would like to have a conversation. How do you do that in a really cool way that gets them interested? This has a lot to do with what we're talking about in terms of social etiquette, and how you make that approach. And we're going to be talking about in the next session in this webinar series is social etiquette, about getting that right, that relationship right. Fundamentally, the way that you build this relationship is by trust. You need to create and build up what is called as the know, like, and trust factor. The more someone is familiar with you and they trust you, the more likely they want to do business with you. Friends love to help friends, and we all know when we get a bit of rapport going with someone and we're having a bit of banter, what have you, they're like much more likely to turn around and go, oh, what is it you do? Oh, let me know about that. And they're much more receptive than if you just go in and whack them around the head with it. So it's really about building up relationships and familiarity and getting them to know you and then to like you and then to trust you as someone who can speak with authority on that subject. And this can be achieved either with a personal introduction or just by allowing the person to spend time with your content. With a personal introduction, the trust that you have with the person you already know actually gets transferred to the person they're introducing you to. So the person's ears are open and they're ready to listen just on the fact that someone they know, like, and trust said that they should know, like, and trust you. So that's really, really powerful, having the introduction. But if you don't have that introduction, you can have them spend time with you and and enjoy your content. You can offer small, relevant pieces of content that gradually gets their interest. And I can see that the slide showing right now, it's about, you know, just putting out snippets of content that add value and allow the person to gradually get to know you and opt in at each stage whether they want to know more. And some really good examples of this: several months ago we were speaking to one of our clients who had recently changed jobs, and we asked him, how did you come to know about the position that you're currently in? And he said it was the funniest thing, because although he'd been completely happy in his job, when the recruiter phoned him and asked him if he'd be interested in leaving and going to the new job, he said, no, I wouldn't. But the recruiter said, okay, fair enough. Can I just ask you to watch this video clip? And he did watch the video clip, and it sparked an interest in him, which led to him watching the next video clip. And then he clicked on some links and another link and another one. And he said that within a week he was absolutely sold on this company, working for this company. He was no longer satisfied in this company current job, and he went to the new place. And the same is also true in business. Someone can send you a message with just a little snippet of information, but really kind of personalized to you and what you do, and just say, hey, you know what, I just wondered if you'd be interested in this. Click on it, it creates a little bit of curiosity. They watch this short presentation, which leads to them choosing to digest another piece of content, and then another piece, and they go, oh, this is really interesting. I'd actually like to speak to the sales rep and discover more about it, and they can automatically book themselves into your diary. So the person is getting to know you, getting to know your information, and feeling like they have a personal relationship with you just because of the types of content you're putting out there. But actually, they've not spoken to you, but now you have an appointment in your diary from what was a cold lead. And the key to it all is about relating to the person as an individual, because this is a social space that we're in, and how we're able to market we are able to market via it, but it's about doing it correctly. In the old days, it used to be business to business and business to consumer, but now those days are pretty much over. It's all about human to human. It's all about relating to people as people. Now, it always was people to people. We have always been human beings. But the fact is before people put on a business face and they represented themselves in a business context in that arena, and then they went home at 5 p.m. and became the individual. Now, because we have personal profiles and it's a social space that we're operating in, we've kind of shifted from being a representative of a company to our own need for personal branding and for having our own identity separate from that company. So that's why it's now much more human to human. And this is the reason that our profiles and our contacts belong to us. It's a social space, and the contacts we make will stay with us for a lifetime. And we want to make sure we build that up really, really carefully. And this is what's known as the art of social selling. It's about developing that know, like, and trust factor. And it's just like playing a game of chess. You need a strategy. If you take on the game and you do it one step at a time, you'll have a really difficult game and likely not win because you haven't planned ahead. But if you have a strategy where you know several moves ahead what you'll be doing, you'll start to find that you can cultivate business relationships really, really effectively. So hopefully what I've spoken about today has really helped you to see how LinkedIn fits within your business model, how it can, whether it's a time suck or whether it's actually a productivity tool. And I think we concluded that Learn to Do It Properly, it's actually a productivity tool. And I've also given you some understanding that you need to be much more in the social space and take care in how you build up those relationships. So in the next session we're going to be looking at how you actually handle that, the social etiquette that's involved in this online space.